Welcome back to The Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, this is a show we talk about the biggest talking points in world football. Joining today, Patrick Van Straten, Dougie, Critchley. You know the faces. They are doing very well. I'm not going to ask them how they're doing. As you can see by the title of this video, we're talking about one of the hottest prospects in the world of football, Jude Bellingham. Obviously, if you've never heard of him, where have you been? You probably don't watch football if that is the case. England international, already starting week in, week out. His contract obviously still has a few years left at Borussia Dortmund, but it does very much feel, guys, that he is going to be leaving Dortmund this season. Last week we saw the information that Liverpool, the destination that I think everyone kind of felt like he was destined to join to, doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Liverpool supposedly pulled out of the deal as they deemed the money needed was too much. Now, according to reports, £130 million is the fee that Borussia Dortmund are looking for. That doesn't include agent fees or the wages he's going to be paid. Dougie, how do you feel firstly about that side of things with now the Liverpool move being off?
I think it's a lot of money. I think any transfer of that amount is probably not worth it, but I think he's probably as close to being worth it as it can be, really. I think that Enzo Fernandez deal in January from Benfica to Chelsea after just 6 months has probably skewed the market a little bit more. I think Bellingham's representatives can be, look, this guy's been one of the best in Europe for 2 years now. Captain Dortmund on occasion, been their really shining light of a side that has had undulations in form. This year looked like they are challenging for the Bundesliga. Disappointing result at the weekend, drawing a game 3-3, felt very much like a result of last year. But I feel like he's a guy and his team are a team that don't rush into decisions easily. There was that Man United link before Dortmund. They brought out Eric Cantona, they brought out Sir Alex Ferguson, and he said, no, I want to go to Dortmund, that's going to be better for my development. So I just feel like it's within his own hands. He's got amazing offers on the table, and I think we'll get into which one suits him best.
Indeed we will. Pat, I mean, do you kind of mention the player that he is? Is he worth £130 million?
I don't really think central midfielders are ever worth that amount of money. In fact, when you look at players who've gone for 9 figures in football history, very, very few of them, I think, have actually shown themselves to be worth that. But, I mean, his age is a really big factor here. For somebody to be a top-class central midfielder before they leave their teens means that you could get 10 to 15 years out of that person, and that really does help make it a little bit more worthwhile. But personally, I don't know. I think that there's probably ways that money can be spent better, like, for example, on 2 players, especially if you're Liverpool.
Yeah, which does seem like the route they're going to go down. I'm sure we'll cover that in future. So I want you guys now to put yourself in Jude Bellingham's shoes. You're a teenager again, guys.
Feeling good. Got
Feeling
full
good.
head of hair.
Full head of hair.
It's lovely.
You're in the skate park, so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe not if you're Jude Bellingham. You're captaining your side in the Champions League. Very, very different. So you're Jude Bellingham here. So you need to kind of think about all side of things, where you're going to be living. Obviously, do you want to return back home to England? How much money you're going to be paid at certain clubs? And your likelihood of featuring in these sides. I mean, to be honest, whatever side he goes to, it does feel like you're going to be starting. And where do you think is the best place for you to go? Now, obviously, I think there are kind of 2 tiers to how it is at the moment. I think first up, which seems like the more likely candidates, is staying at Borussia Dortmund, moving to Real Madrid, or moving to Manchester City. Those are the clubs that kind of feel like they tick all the boxes, going to pay you enough, going to kind of give you a real education of football, but also afford the transfer fee. And then there's the others where your Manchester United comes in, your maybe Liverpool. Doesn't feel like that's going to happen now, obviously, after the news. Chelsea, highly doubtful. Maybe they're in their own tier. Bayern Munich, for instance. Dougie or Jude, where are you going?
It's so difficult, isn't it? I think there are so many good options on the table. What I'm quite interested in, I think it's personally, if I was him, it's a choice between Real Madrid and Man City, to be totally honest. I feel like Real Madrid have been saving up for a while, but they've actually been saving up for a different position. Okay. They've been saving up for Kylian Mbappe was the dream, that Karim Benzema replacement. They also need to sign a right back eventually. Dani Carvajal is not getting any younger, he's definitely not getting any better either. Are they going to commit that sort of money when their midfield 3 going forward could be Camavinga, Tchouaméni and Valverde? Valverde can also play on the right wing. He's played that really effectively this year. Ancelotti's been reasonably inventive with where he uses him, and he's a great player in those sort of areas. But does he want to go to a side where he's guaranteed to start? And you probably think at Man City, he's more likely to walk into the first team immediately. Like, Ancelotti's had no issue with benching Camavinga at times this year. Tchouaméni's lost his place in the side recently. Whereas Man City, Gundogan's deal is running out in the summer. I think there's a good chance he could extend, but there's also a good chance he might leave. It's a real sort of 50-50 one, and for it to be so unsure at this moment in time, I think is a little bit concerning. He's not a natural Gundogan replacement in many ways. For me, I think Gundogan's much more of a controlling player, can pick up balls in dangerous areas and just move it on. I think Bellingham is much more of a dribbler through tight spaces. Physically, he's much more physical player. And he has played generally on the right-hand side where Kevin De Bruyne plays. He's also not a tempo setter in the same way that Gundogan is. So I think there are pros and cons of both moves. The fact that Man City is obviously closer to Birmingham, where he grew up, or Manchester is closer to Birmingham, where he grew up, that could be a big factor. The climate of Real Madrid as well. Real Madrid he could also move to in 3-4 years' time. And he will always seemingly have a move to a truly elite side with the history of an elite side in the years to come as well. So he could always move to Man City, do a similar sort of thing to Erling Haaland, then move in a couple of years' time. If I was him personally right now, I think I'd go to Man City because I think you're more set to get into the first team immediately.
Wow, for a guy that idolised supposedly Steven Gerrard, so on and so forth, he's saying no to Liverpool. To be honest, he just might not have the option. Like it might, there are loads of clubs that will obviously want Jude Bellingham. There's not many clubs that will actually be able to get their contract in front of him, like maybe City and Real Madrid. Jude, number 2. Where are you going, my friend?
I mean, if City's available, the combination of wages, the ability to compete for major trophies every year, and the stability of the managerial situation are things that I would find very appealing. And there is, as Dougie says, a slot in the first team that's going to open up. But I don't actually really think he's a particularly good fit for either of these clubs. I think with Real Madrid, yeah, they already have 3 good central midfielders. And if you add Bellingham in, I'm not sure he really dovetails with those 3 in any real way. Like, he's quite similar, I'd say, to all 3 of them in different ways. The Gundogan role, Gundogan's job is also to kind of pop up in the final third and get shots. And Bellingham has done that in the past, but it's not really what you want him in the side for. You know, this season his defensive numbers have gone up. His dribble numbers have gone up too, but actually he's passing into the final third more. He's much more of a kind of incisive player. And the further up the field you can play him, the less incisive he's going to be because he's not a number 10. He's incisive from deep. So I'm not really sure that either one of those makes sense. I actually think role-wise, Liverpool or Man United would be a better fit for him, but I wouldn't pick either of them over Real Madrid or City, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think he's clearly got enough of a breadth of talent that he will be able to be useful wherever he goes. But I actually think Real Madrid is maybe the place that he would be least valued.
Okay, and especially for someone, as you mentioned, how young he is, you've kind of raised it there. He can have the possibility to go to several other clubs throughout his career, very much like that Erling Haaland kind of move. Which club do you think needs him the most, Dougie? And this could be not just out of Real Madrid and Man City. It could be Liverpool's. It could be
your whole numbers of
Chelsea.
clubs. I mean, Juventus probably would be a great start. I think they're very short of that sort of player in the centre of the park, despite Rabiot having a much improved season. You know, obviously the lower down, you know, I could talk about the Milan clubs, for example, but he's not going to go there. I think Man United is probably the club that needs him most in many ways, just because all their signings last summer, as promising as they were, do need to be replaced in a couple of years' time, or at least Eriksen and Casemiro do. They aren't long-term fixes, and I think Man United fans know that. They're not really thinking that long-term at the moment, Man United. The links with Harry Kane suggest they are trying to win something in the next 2-3 years before his body eventually deteriorates, like all good players do. And Kane, I think, will deteriorate earlier than most, just because of his physique and his injury record. So Man United would be a very good fit, and then I kind of agree with Pat. I think Liverpool have such a gaping hole there, and they didn't sign Tchouaméni. They missed out on Tchouaméni. They saved up to sign Bellingham, and now their position without this Champions League revenue coming in makes it almost impossible to do that. And I think it is a bit of a shame. I put it on Twitter last week. I kind of regret it now. Did they need to sign Gakpo? Because that was maybe 40 million euros that could have been used for Bellingham. Gakpo's actually been pretty good, and he does look like he could be the long-term heir to Bobby Firmino in that role, which I didn't necessarily think he would be able to be when he signed. So they haven't completely messed up their transfer business, and maybe signing 2 or 3 midfielders or strengthening other areas, fullback depth, is the better long-term strategy. So I think Man United is probably the side that needs him most in that position, because they are stronger around the rest of the side than Liverpool right now. But I don't think he's going to go to Man United.
It'll be interesting, that connection as well for him. If United start knocking at the door again, he'll obviously start thinking about how they obviously pulled out all the works for him last time, and he said no in the end. Let's touch upon one other club then, Pat, Bayern Munich. They've now got Thomas Tuchel. There's also rumours that Gravenberch might possibly go to Liverpool next season, whether that's on loan or a permanent move. Do you think that is a possibility, or do you think he's has his heart set on going elsewhere?
We still don't really see Bayern pull the stops out and transfer fees the way that other clubs do. Obviously, they are evolving in that regard. You know, they're starting to have to get real about the market. But if Bayern come in for him, it will be because he stayed at Dortmund and run down his deal a little bit more, I think. You've got to bear in mind that this is a player who Dortmund will want to sell to an English club.
Yeah.
They will want to get that premium for a homegrown player. And that means that if you're a Real Madrid or a Bayern Munich, you're going to be paying that premium for a guy who doesn't actually give you that homegrown benefit, especially if you're Bayern Munich. Because Dortmund, if they're asking for 130 million from Liverpool, God knows what they're going to ask for from Bayern Munich. Because it's just, you know, they're in a moment where they could feasibly catch up with Bayern if they made the right managerial appointment, if they made the right couple of signings, especially up front. So I don't think that they'll want to let him go. I don't know. I just think Bayern always get good use out of these kinds of players, but they've got Kimmich there, they've got Musiala. That's kind of 2/3 of a good midfield three. I'm not sure that they will push out the boat for Bellingham. I think they'll just make it work.
They've also got Konrad Lima arriving this summer, already sewn up as well. So are they going to splurge that sort of money on another midfielder as well? It's a bit of a shame that it feels like this is a very good summer to leave Dortmund. Like they, up until a few weeks ago, were looking dead set for maybe a potential deep Champions League run, or at least a quarter-final. They were, playing, up against the Chelsea side that were really struggling, didn't deliver in that second leg at all. They'd been knocked out of the Pokal. They lost a Klassiker quite heavily to Bayern Munich, and it felt like what was really promising season is sort of hanging by a thread now. And even at the weekend when Bayern Munich dropped points in the Bundesliga, they then dropped points drawing 3-3, So it's frustrating having lost Sancho, Haaland, and probably Bellingham this summer. That is an enormous talent drain, and I think it does eventually catch up with you. So their time to win the Bundesliga, I think, is this season.
Well, there we have it, guys. Where would you go if you were Mr. Bellingham? Let us know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, then click on screen right now for more. And as always, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.